Hello and welcome to a special episode of Stories from the Toyshelf Unscripted. So this is something new for me, and it's something I thought I could end the year with, something different as usual. It's something that's done by many content creators, and I thought I'd give it a shot. So this is a Q&A episode. I basically put it out on my community page for you guys, my viewers and friends and members of the Toy Shelf, to give me some questions about anything under the sun, anything that I talk about my channel, Transformers, GI Joes, toys in general, or whatever, life, the meaning of life, anything's on the table. So first of all, before we start, I just want to thank everyone who gave in a question, who posted a question. It is very much appreciated. And hopefully if this works out, we can have more of these types of episodes next year. So anyway, let's get started. Okay, so let's get started with a bunch of questions asked by a friend of the Toy Shelf at Norris C761, and he asked quite a lot, starting with pretty basic one. What do I do for a living? Well, I'm a real estate broker. I try to find something around the house that looked like a house, but this is basically what I have. It's a miniaturized version of a church. Actually, this is a church that I go to regularly, and I am a pretty active member of our church. But aside from that, yeah, so I'm a real estate broker. Not very exciting, but it's a living. He also wanted to know what inspired me to make YouTube videos. And just as an aside, this question was also asked by @PatriotPrimeReviews, another YouTube channel, another YouTuber who's a really cool guy. He's got a really cool channel, so I'd like to recommend checking him out, so Patriot Prime Reviews. But anyway, they both wanted to know what made me start up this channel. Okay, so actually, while this channel is probably around 2 years old, I actually had been actively blogging. Sounds like such a dated word now. I have a blog also called Stories from the Toy Shop, which I started sometime around 2012. So that's, wow, 12 years ago. And basically everything that I do for this channel, I was doing as a blog. I was writing down posts and stuff like that. I was inspired by this other blogger. Back then, he went by X Entertainment. And no, I know what it sounds like. No, but this guy was another 80s blogger. He blogged a lot about toys, but basically about growing up as a kid in the 80s. And I wanted to emulate his style in the sense that, it brought back a lot of memories. And so that's how I patterned my blog and later on my channel, which was basically, the keyword is stories, right? So it's stories from the Toy Shelf. It's not so much, I talk about like the history maybe, or how specific characters were used, but more specifically, I talk about how they relate to me and my memories of them. So whatever childhood memories I may have linked to them, why I bought toys and so on. So that's how I patterned my channel. That's how it started. So I decided, after 12 years, I realized maybe let's try something different. And so I started the channel, and I guess the rest is history. If you're interested, my blog still exists at storiesfromthetoyshelf.com, so you can check it out. Anyway, at Norris C761 has more questions. These should go by pretty fast. So, have I ever picked fruit? I live in Manila, the Philippines, in the city where there are not many fruit trees around, but we did have a vacation house. It sounds so fancy, but yeah. So there's a city up in the mountains here in the Philippines called Baguio, where a lot of people had vacation houses growing up. Back then, it was more country-ish, more laid back, and so yeah, our house had trees. We had lime trees and mulberry trees. So yes, I did pick limes and I did pick mulberries. What else? If I were a tree, what kind of tree would I be? I don't know, but my favorite tree has always been a pine tree. I guess it goes along with Baguio and stuff. That's our Christmas tree. My daughters decided to make it a Care Bear Christmas. So yeah, so pine trees. Okay, what else? Would you consider what I do as an art? Yeah, storytelling is an art. I'm not the greatest storyteller, but I'd like to think I'm pretty above average. And I always believe that art is sharing a part of you with others. So the way I think, the way I interpret things, the way I see things in the world, I think it counts as art. I put my words onto paper or on a document and I make it into video, and the finished product is art. Some people might not like the way I present it. I've gotten my share of "your editing sucks, your editing's trash," and you don't have to do all that stupid stuff. But I like it because the reason why I like it is because I feel it shares a little bit of my own personality as a person. Anyone can tell you about the history of Prime, of GI Joe and whatnot, but I like throwing in a little bit of myself, my humor. Not everyone gets it, but a lot lot of people do, and they let me know, and I'm happy for that. So yeah, for me, art is something that is a part of a person that is shared, and for me, that's art. And so yes, I believe my channel is art. And who is my favorite Beatle? Okay, I love this because I love the Beatles, and my favorite Beatle is George. I've always loved George. I mean, I love all the Beatles, yes, even Ringo, but of all of them, I kind of like jive with his personality. I mean, the Beatles were basically, the songs were basically all mostly written by John and Paul, and that wasn't by accident. I think it was in their contract. Every album had to contain like 90% of John and Paul compositions, and George was basically given 1 or 2 slots. So yeah, I kind of jive with his situation, right? Like, he was a talented songwriter in himself, but he didn't have the opportunity to have a songwriting partner like John and Paul had with each other. Basically, George had to develop as a songwriter on his own. I really enjoy all their solo careers, but George has always been my favorite. I mean, his All Things Must Pass triple album is like amazing. I think it's pretty much amazing. So yeah, my favorite Beatle, George. And he also asked who my favorite monkey was. Unfortunately, I was not a Monkees fan. I mean, I never really listened to them. I do know their song, I'm a Believer, but sorry, I can't help you with that one. I don't really have a favorite. So yeah. So back to toys. At big_006 wants to know, what's one of my favorite Transformer toys, new or old? Well, this would be, I know this is pretty recent, but this is the Missing Link Optimus Prime. It's one of my newest toys, and it basically is the original vintage toy. So I think it checks both boxes as my favorite new and old toy. But I guess I would throw in these two: Alternators Sunstreaker and Alternators Prowl. Oops. So these guys were the very first toys I bought as an adult. These are the ones that got me started down my toy collecting journey as an adult. So they're the oldest toys in my collection. So I guess they have that special distinction. So at Cheeseburger12 wants to know, do I have any thoughts on less popular toy lines or shows? Are there any possible episodes about them in the pipeline? So yeah, as you see in my channel, I've got a whole lot of basically Transformers and G.I. Joes. But if you scroll down, you'll see older stuff on He-Man and what else? Star Wars, Marvel Legends. But see, the thing with the YouTube algorithm is you can't really stray far. That's something I've learned. You can't really stray far from your usual topics. And yeah, you might think, oh, but it's a toy channel, right? But YouTube makes that distinction, even that distinction. So when I first started out the channel, I was doing a multiple prong approach. I was covering a different type of toy every week, and none of them really took off until one of my G.I. Joe videos took off early this year. And so basically what I'm saying is I would love to talk about other lines, but as it is right now, I would have to kind of limit that to exclusive content for my members and friends, because the moment I put out something that's not Transformers or G.I. Joe related, YouTube basically does not help out, and the difference is very clear. But anyway, yeah, I am a fan of other lines, and hopefully one day I'll be able to talk about them and share them out as public videos. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the Thundercats, the Silverhawks, Ghostbusters, among other things, GoBots. I was not a big Mask person. I watched the show, but I never collected the toys, and a whole lot of other things. So I hope that answers that. But he mentions Captain Power and Cops. I watched Captain Power as a kid, but I never had the toys. But I hear it's pretty dark. I mean, I never finished the show, but I hear it's a pretty dark show. So Cops, unfortunately, I never watched Cops. Weird, no? But yeah, I did read about that sort of connection between Cops and G.I. Joe, which I might cover, who knows, when YouTube gets a little more open to me tackling other stuff. So next question at Galva Prime-7347 wants to know, if I could choose the figure that means the most to me in my collection, what would it be? There are a lot, but I guess if you whittled it down right now, like I mentioned in the previous question, okay, this guy, Missing Link Optimus Prime, is very special to me. Basically, the 3 pillars of my childhood are Transformers, G.I. Joe, and He-Man. So that being said, when I got Missing Link Optimus Prime, it wasn't the original plan, but I was pretty much blown away by him that I decided to get this guy as well. So this is the Origins He-Man, which is just like the Missing Link. It's the original vintage toy with more articulation. And to finish off the trio, I wanted a G.I. Joe, right? And well, while classified wouldn't cut it, I came across this guy who came with a Cobra Commander. So this is an updated release of the original O-ring of Duke. So these guys make quite the collection for me. I mean, the combination. So as it is right now, them together, it's like the perfect combination, the perfect representation of my childhood, and at this point mean quite a lot to me. Okay, so at Galva Prime 7347 also wants to know, what do I do in my spare time? What movies or games or comics am I into? All right, so aside from being hopelessly addicted to YouTube, I mean, I just watch 10 million channels. Whether it's toy reviews, some of my favorite channels are Bobby Skullface, MGo316, Deluxe Baldwin. For G.I. Joe, I actually started getting into this new channel, fairly new. I think he's a fairly new channel, but That's True is my spirit animal. I highly recommend that guy. He's pretty cool and entertaining. Other than that, I watch a lot of travel channels, you know, food channels. Uncle Roger, I don't know if you know that guy. But anyway, yeah, but aside from that, I'm not much of a gamer, although I'm more of a, like, I don't play a lot of games, video games, but those few that I do get into, I really get into. Case in point, Legend of Zelda. I've been a fan of Legend of Zelda from day one, from the 80s original game, Link's Adventure of Link, Link to the Past, and all that stuff. And of course, the latest ones. I would basically buy a gaming system like the Nintendo Wii just because of the Zelda games. So for Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, which is this guy, and of course, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom. So yeah, my wife and my two kids are actually bigger gamers than me, and between the four of us, actually, our original Switch Joy-Con just died a few days ago, and now my wife is just freaking out because she can't play her game. What else? Yeah, we watch shows together. I just finished the third season of this show called From. I don't know if you know it. It's one of those mystery box shows of this town in the forest which you can never leave, and when the sun goes down, these monsters come out. So sort of like Lost. In fact, the main character of the show is Michael Perno. He's from Lost. He was Michael from Lost. But anyway, yeah, big into that. Big into reality TV, especially Survivor, The Amazing Race. Just recently, my 9-year-old daughter really got into Survivor, so she watches with us, and it's a good thing because she kind of remembers everything. You know, us being oldies, my wife and I, we can never remember, like, you know, the previous season and who won and stuff like that. So she's very useful in helping us recall stuff like that. I watch sports, not much, but I'm big into NBA. My favorite team is the Los Angeles Lakers. Not a LeBron fan. I mean, he is what he is, right? But my love is for the team and not for the player. So as long as he's a Laker, I'll root for him. But I was there since growing up. My favorite player was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, more so than Magic Johnson. So I was in on the 80s Showtime and stuff like that. So Lakers Nation. Comics, I don't read too much comics right now. I am reading the Energon Universe by Skybound, which is pretty cool. G.I. Joe and Transformers crossovers, they're a dime a dozen, but I appreciate how Skybound is kind of doing a very slow burn and trying to set up the world and stuff like that. And it's pretty good. So I highly recommend it if you haven't read it yet. And that's it for this question. Okay, so another friend of the Toy Shelf at Golden Sand 2000 asks, do I have any burning or hot takes about the Transformers or G.I. Joe franchise? This is a pretty tricky one. I can't really think of any controversial takes. When it comes to G.I. Joe, I guess, I don't know if it's a controversial take, but ninjas don't really have a, I mean, yeah, okay, fine, they do have a place in G.I. Joe, but I prefer my G.I. Joe ninja-less. Case in point, when it comes to Snake Eyes, I prefer my Snake Eyes as Commando Snake Eyes and not the Ninja Snake Eyes, but whatever. Firefly is greater than Storm Shadow. I don't know if that's a burning hot take or controversial, but for Transformers, I don't know. Transformers 1 is the greatest Transformers movie ever, even more so than Transformers 86. Look, I mean, I get it. The 86 movie is an iconic movie and it's burned into our hearts and minds. But if you want to look at it objectively, I think Transformers 1, in terms of like what it accomplishes, it starts its own take on an age-old franchise, and it's fresh and it's almost perfect, right? So yeah, I don't know if that's a controversial take. Another one is, I think when it comes to Transformer cartoons, possibly the greatest modern story or series done is Transformers Animated. And yes, this is not the actual Transformers Animated Optimus Prime, nor is this the actual animated Prowl or Bumblebee. These are the Legacy United ones, the G1ified versions. But yeah, I think animated is not only possibly the greatest Transformers series ever done. I mean, fine, you can say aside from G1, but objectively speaking, like if you're looking at storytelling and quality, I mean, even that, I don't think G1 holds a candle to animated. And the toys, the toy line, okay? Golden Sand goes on to ask, do I have any figures that I never plan on selling? And well, yeah, I have a fairly complete animated toy line collection, and that's one collection I don't plan on selling because I think, and this could be another burning take, I think that bar none, animated, Transformers animated is the greatest Transformers toy line there. Like, I mean, you might not be a fan of this aesthetic, this very ultra cartoony design, but even you have to admit that, like, when translated into toys, they actually have the most accurate translation, right? And aside from that, the engineering of some of those toys were amazing and haven't been duplicated since. I mean, something like Shockwave, it's a quadruple changer. You can transform him into his long arm prime, and then the long arm prime's alt mode and Shockwave's alt mode. So that you have, what else? The updated version of Prowl, the Samurai Prowl, where his armor turns into a sidecar. I mean, I think that's fantastic. And of course, one of my favorites, Jetfire and Jetstorm, the twins who form, I forgot their combined mode, but basically it's like they combine vertically, which is like amazing. And it's just a very well done toy line with stuff that hasn't been done since. So you can call that a hot take, best Transformers toy line ever, and a toy line that I have no plans of selling. Other things I don't plan on selling, well, basically stuff that have a lot of nostalgic or sentimental value to me. Case in point, let's adjust MP10. Let's push this guy back. MP10 or forward. How does this work? MP10. Yeah. So since his release, there have been so many more arguably better versions of Prime. Out with the old and in with the new, right? Whenever there's at least for me, whenever there's a new version of someone, I usually tend to sell off the other one. But this guy will probably remain in my collection, basically because this was one of my white whales for the longest time, and I found him during my honeymoon in Hong Kong in some random little hole-in-the-wall shop. As many Optimus Primes, better looking ones will come after this. I think as a piece, in terms of masterpiece, this guy MP10 will always be one of the iconic releases. But aside from that, add in the nostalgia and the sentimentality of it. I got this during my honeymoon. So yeah, probably one of the one things I will not sell. Another one, other things, I know there's a Studio Series 86 Devastator coming out, but I have no plans of selling my Combiner Wars Devi, which was given to me by my wife for an anniversary present. And then, well, this guy, Groot, is another one. So during our honeymoon, my wife bought me my very, very first Marvel Legends complete wave, which was the Guardians of the Galaxy wave. And I've since sold, some of them. They've been replaced with newer versions. But this Groot, this is my very, very first build a figure for Marvel Legends. And yeah, I can't completely sell off every single figure of that wave just because it was the very first complete Marvel Legends wave that I bought, and it was bought for me by my wife on our honeymoon. So yeah. Okay, next we have a question from @gal_bladder_works. So this is actually a really good friend of mine here in Manila, and he wanted to know general stuff about the Omnibots. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Omnibots, but they were a trio of Transformers who were available in the 80s as special mail-away toys. So they were also from Diaclone. I never had them as a kid, but I was always a fan of them. There were 3 of them. So you had Overdrive, Camshaft, and Downshift. So yeah, what was cool about these cars was they were kind of like, how Trax had his flying car mode. So these guys also had like their battle modes. And from what I know, there has never been any official release from Hasbro of the Omnibots since the original toys. And so they've sort of become a major constant item on almost every Transformer fan's wish list. So a few years back, third-party company X-Transbots announced that they would be doing the Omnibots. And last year, we finally got the first one, which was this guy, Overdrive. So actually, I was quite happy that this was their first. I mean, he was called Fiorante. So in Italian, this guy, his ankles are terrible. Please do not fall over. Yeah, so I'm glad that this was the first Omnibot that they released because he's my favorite basically, I don't know if you can tell, he looks pretty cool. He was based on a Ferrari, and that was one of my biggest complaints about the original crew, the original Autobots, that there was no Ferrari in the group. And so like Overdrive was like, yes, thank you. Plus, he had had a cool like visor like jazz, which I loved. So yeah, so X-Transpots finally gave us Fiorante last year. It's not perfect, his ankles are crap, but anyway. And then this year, just recently, they gave us the second Omnibot, Downshift. I think he's called Yaguchi. So yeah, so two down. Hopefully by next year we'll have the third one. Yeah, I'll probably do an episode on Omnibots eventually, but that's probably when I get the third one. But yeah, I don't know if I satisfied your question, but they're just a bunch of mail-away Transformers who are long overdue for modern updates. So hopefully Hasbro will get around to them as well. But yeah, Omnibots. So Overdrive and Downshift, and hopefully soon we won't have to wait too long for Camshaft. And finally, we have a few questions from a good friend of the Toy Shelf at Ordy Bavington 8789, who I like to call Mr. Fox, the fantastic Mr. Fox. So he asks, which Transformer can you relate to the most? And honestly, this was a tricky one, but I don't know if it's very accurate, but this guy was one of the first characters that popped into mind. And it's funny because he's not really a favorite of mine. And I'm gonna hold him because he's not the most stable of individuals. It's Trailbreaker. Why Trailbreaker? Well, basically because he strikes me as one of the least flashy characters in the original G1 cast. He's usually lost in the background, and that's how I really see myself. I'm not really an extrovert or an in-your-face type of person, if that may be hard to believe. But yeah, I mean, there are a whole lot of more flashy characters out there, especially in the original crew. You know, Jazz, Bumblebee, and stuff like that. And Trailbreaker is kind of one of the more plain-looking bots. But like the thing with him is his character. He's the dependable one. No, I mean, I'm very dependable. I'd like to think I'm dependable. He's a bit old-fashioned, nothing flashy, and well, he is associated with two of my favorites, which are Sunstreaker and Sideswipe. They had that scene where, you know, Sunstreaker and Sideswipe came to his rescue. But yeah, I hope this isn't a cop-out, but yeah, I would think I identify most with Trailbreaker. Okay, so his second question is, I Am the Walrus or Time of the Season? In case you don't know, I Am the Walrus is a song by the Beatles, and Time of the Season is a song by the Zombies. And yeah, in case I didn't make it clear in my videos, I am a huge Beatles fan, right? Like I mentioned, my favorite is George, but yeah, I love them all. Ringo, John, and Paul, right? Huge Beatles fan. And I love the song I Am the Walrus. That being said, as much as I love the Beatles, I am a big fan of the Zombies as well. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They were a band that also, I think, came out in the 60s. But there was a time in the early 2000s, I was a huge fan of the Zombies, and so much a fan, I even bought their like box set. But anyway, yeah, Time of the Season was probably their biggest hit from Odyssey and Oracle, which was sort of like, I guess, their version of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper. But yeah, so anyway, if you're talking about, I will always pick the Beatles over the Zombies. But that being said, if we're comparing I Am the Walrus with Time of the Season, it's not even close, right? I Am the Walrus is a great song. It's a chaotic and whimsical song, which I love. I love I Am the Walrus. But that being said, Time of the Season is just amazing. I just love the harmonies, the groove, the bass groove of the verses, the epicness of the chorus. You know, it's just all out, just a better song in every way, if you ask me. So yeah, love I Am the Walrus. I love the Beatles, but Zombies, man, Time of the Season. And finally, do I have any plans of visiting Down Under, Australia? So Ordy is from Australia. So yeah, I mean, no concrete plans, but definitely Australia is in my short list of places to go. Never been there myself, but I do have a lot of good friends there. In fact, an old bandmate of mine actually lives there now. Basically, I've got a lot of reasons to visit Australia, and definitely. I came close almost 10 years ago when I almost went there to watch my favorite band, the Counting Crows. Missed that. But anyway, yeah, Australia is definitely in the plans. So there you go. And that's pretty much the episode. So thank you so much for everyone once again who gave in their questions. I hope I was able to answer them to your satisfaction. And hopefully this is something we can do more often. Like I said, thank you for a great year. 2024 is like the breakout year for this channel for me. It's been great getting to meet every single one of you, answering all your comments and getting to know some of you more than others. But I hope there will be more of you. But yeah, thank you so much. I hope next year will be even better. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you keep coming back for more.